start with an opening statement. You're the first team that's going to play an opponent for the second time, and what's different about that and having to play somebody for 2 games this early in the Big Ten season?
Well, I think, our first game against Nebraska, being unfamiliar with them and their players, as much as anything, sometimes when you're in Big Ten play, you really know the system or the players or what they do, and, really in watching them here recently and then watching our first game, they're very, very dangerous. Fred has unbelievable spacing and pace to his offense, and they keep that paint wide open, and they're hard to guard. And Mac is one of the probably more unsung point guards in college basketball in terms of what he does for his team. He is a blur off the bounce, and he's a fantastic passer. And when they're successful, he pretty much dominates the game with his production in terms of not only creating shots for others, but also his own offense. When you mix in the three-point shooting with Burke, Thorbenson, you mix in both of their young fives who can pick and pop a little bit, the guys off the bench, they're very dangerous. And in particular at home, they're going to play with a lot more confidence. Obviously at home and shooting the ball, etc. But they were very confident in here, I guess, about a month ago. So they have our attention. They have, our ultimate respect. In our first game, we did a lot of good things. Being able to rebound and draw fouls, played with some pace. But, we weren't good enough defensively by any stretch. And coming off of that game and now going into the second time, we're going to have to be much, much better defensively in terms of how we defended the ball and getting back, etc. I think they made 12 threes or whatnot. Burke had 25. But they got good players. Cheatham's a very difficult cover. Mac's a very difficult cover. Burke, those guys are talented. When they get going, they're good. Obviously, they've had success at home with big wins against Purdue and Iowa. And watching them come back against Northwestern and play Ohio State the other day, it'll be as difficult as a game. Nebraska's got one of the best home courts in the league, so very, very concerning game. But we have played them one time, so we have some familiarity. They did a lot of things in game one that put a lot of problems on our plate.
Joe?
One player had a really good game against Nebraska was Trace. He's had some struggles here of late. How do you think he's handled those, and what can you do to kind of get him more involved, do you think?
He's a young player who's going through a normal progression of the Big Ten schedule. He's not an average freshman that's asked to come in the game and give you a role or give you spot minutes. And in talking to Trace, the one thing I think young guys got to understand is, especially at this time of year, you're a player now. And not only are you a player for our team, you're a player on the other coach's mind. What do you do to stop him? What do you do to keep him from doing this? What do you do to keep Jackson Davis from being successful? Because he's so impactful for our team. And, he leads us in scoring, rebounding, free throw attempts, free throw makes, block shots. He's a good player. And I just think young guys get caught up sometimes and it's not going well for me right now. I'm a little down. I didn't make any baskets. We lost, blah, blah, blah. But it's hard for a young guy to maybe realize sometimes the value that he has for your team. Not scoring, but just the value he adds to our team when he's himself. And to me, we got to get Trace back to being himself. Starts with his everyday habits, continue to work and get better. But make no mistake, he's one of the best players in this league overall, not as a freshman. And he's an important part to what we do. And when you're an important part to what we do, you have to be there. Mind, body, mentality, the whole deal. It doesn't have to be scored a bunch of points, but don't give yourself out, so to speak, of what you can't do or what you're not doing. It's always about what you can do, and trying to bring that to his mind right now and refreshing him a little bit, because he's had such a great year for us here to start, and he's got so much more ground he can cover, and he's a big part of our success.
Yeah, Coach, a couple weeks ago on your radio show, you talked about the three-point shooting, and you mentioned shots and rhythm. I was curious, after reviewing the Rutgers tape, it felt like you got shots and rhythm or not in terms of, the 2 for 18 performance.
Some were in rhythm, some are horse shots, and they're open. They're wide open, and then there's some that I think Rutgers had a great deal of pressure on us, which sped the ball up and made our players speed up. But, the 2 for 18 from the 3, or maybe up till the 5-minute mark, hadn't hit one. There were some good ones in there. And our players have to, take pride and continue to work on them. And we got to continue as a staff to continue to get our guys good looks. And, we have to be able to find a way, especially on the road, to be able to stick a few, because that's the key. That's the key in being able to be consistent. Especially playing in this league on the road, you're going to have to be able to make some shots, or a guy's going to have one of those nights that maybe we've had at home on the road. And every team has it. Every team's going through it. Every team finds a way to find the opportunity to play to win on the road and have a chance to win. And part of it is you got to be able to make some open ones, because it's so tough. Especially in the paint in the Big Ten, it's just very, very difficult. So the other night was as difficult of a game as I've been in, just in terms of around the basket, being able to get easy, but there's nothing easy. And you had to find a way to make a few of those, open ones. But the more you talk about it, the more it becomes a thing. And players play, and if you watch the film with the team, you kind of look at some of the things that we did well, and if the shot goes in, everyone says, wow, good play, or nice pass, it didn't go in. And we got to make sure that we continue to bring the right reads to their deal and keep making them. And eventually at some point in time, you have great faith in your guys and in their belief in themselves, and they'll make some.
Zach?
Kind of going back to Trace, you talked, I guess, recently too about dealing with double teams and just the extra attention that comes with the success. What's the balance you strike with a young guy with maybe wanting to work in some layers of, hey, here's how you take the next step, here's how you go to kind of the next level of beating a double team or whatever, without maybe inundating him with so much that he starts to freeze or overthink?
Yeah, a little bit. Good point. It's a good question. I think so much about these guys is keeping things simple, making sure that they feel good and they're aggressive. Obviously, as things come their way, what teams are trying to do or what this game is going to be about for you individually, you want to bring that to the table. But the more you talk and the more you, sort of information overload, the more it just becomes not about being yourself, being a player. And Trace and I had a good talk last night. And the bottom line is players continue to evolve as the season goes. Sometimes they have their ruts. Sometimes good players, go through a couple games. But the best players always find a way, to bring it on the biggest nights. And we need Trace to bring it on the biggest night. And that biggest night will be Saturday for him. And he's got to be aggressive. He's got to do the things. If you watch our first time we played against Nebraska, his effort level, his activity level, what he was able to do in that game, it didn't come from me. It came from his ability to play hard, run, and play to win, and be aggressive, and not worry about, I missed a shot or they're double teaming me. It doesn't matter. And he always plays to win. That's the great thing about him, and he cares a great deal about playing to win and us winning, and that means something. He adds a lot of value to our locker room and to the deal with who he is. But you never want to see a guy go through the dumps and let it carry over, and I don't think he'll do that.
Time for one more question. Go ahead.
Just following up on that, what happened in that conversation last night?
I'm not talking about that.
Okay. And you talked also about just emphasizing that the value he has to the team. How have you been able to emphasize that to him? Well, again, not overload.
I just think at the end of the day, sometimes as you go through the course of the year, sometimes as a coach and sometimes as a player, it becomes a long year and you start to forget about all the ways that you were successful, you have been successful, and sometimes you're kind of living in the moment and you forget. I think you want Trace to really understand that in our wins and in our losses, he plays a big role, not because of the play that we call or anything, but because of his winning attitude, and his effort level, and the things that he brings to the table that I can't teach him. Don't ever lose that, because that's what makes you who you are. That's what shows out there when you're at your best. we'll keep working on the other things, and we'll keep working to get better on the little things. But if you're gonna settle and say, this is where I'm at right now, and boy, I'm struggling, or if you're gonna settle, then I'll stop playing you as many minutes. You know, at the end of the day, he can't settle for anything other than his best. And when he does that, you know, at the end of the day, he's gonna be successful. We'll keep working to get better, and he's gotta continue to get better, but he's got so much ability, and he's got so much talent. When he's engaged, you know, he just impacts the game a lot of different ways. And that's the thing I think that, you know, he's got to focus on, and our team in general, all of our players have to focus on. You know, I think we're 13-4, and we're in the midst of a grueling league. And in 17 games, there's a lot of information. And if you just kind of go from day one to where you're at right now, and you think back to where you started, man, have you done a lot of good things. There's a lot of players who've done a lot of good things. Right now, like every team, you're trying to find a way to navigate that mountain. And to do it, each player's got to find a way to be a little bit better. Each coach has got to find a way to be a little bit better. It's about right now. And don't lose the faith that all that stuff that you've done doesn't play a role. But right now, it's about, you know, where are we at? How do we continue to get better? Don't lose sight of all the great things that you've done and you do for our team. Each player's the same, but you don't want to dwell. You want to improve. And I think that's part of it. You know, keep it simple, but you got to improve, got to keep working. And Saturday's going to be a heck of a night. It's an unbelievable place to play. And just like it was on Wednesday, I mean, that's why you play. I mean, when you're in those games, man, that's where you earn your stripes. And you know, you as a coach are looking forward to watching your players sort of realize, you know, that when they do cross the finish line and you win the game, you know, man, I worked really hard for this. You know, see, you put in the work, you know, it happens. So we just got to stay with it.
All right, Coach, thank you.
Yep. Hopefully